All right, so now that we've talked about how to do Windows authentication, I'd like to talk about authorization, specifically ASP.NET URL authorization. You configure this in a section of your web.config file called system.web/whack authorization. And that authorization element allows you to add allow elements and deny elements. Basically what you do is you set up some matching rules that say, how you're going to match the request, and then the first match wins. So the order is important. These things are evaluated from top to bottom in your config file, as you'll see in just a minute. And in order to figure out whether or not one of these elements matches a request, there's a few possible attributes that you can put on these things. So you can say, for example, users. You can have a commented delimited list of users. And you can have a set of verbs. And you can also have some roles. We'll talk about roles later on. Right now I really just want to focus on users and verbs. The users attribute supports a couple of wildcards. So you could put, user equals Bob or user equals Alice, but you can also put user equals star, which means all requests. That will match all requests. User equals question mark matches only anonymous requests. So it's a pretty easy way for you to deny anonymous requests. That's commonly how it's used. Now, if you remember that there's inheritance in config files, right? There's a root web.config file, and it supplies a default rule that says allow users equals star, and you saw that earlier. Now, what you want to do typically is you want to override that rule in your own configuration file and perhaps disallow anonymous users. Now, you can set up config files in subdirectories. You can set them up at the site level. You can set them up at the application level. There's all of this different hierarchy of web.config files. And it turns out that in ASP.NET URL authorization, the most important rules are the ones that are closest to the resource being accessed. So here's an example here. Here's a config file that has a location element that's talking specifically about one resource, private.aspx. It has an authorization section that says deny users equals question. So for this particular file, anonymous users will not have access to it because we've set up this rule. This rule overrides the rule in web.config, and I'll show you some examples of this in just a moment.